how y'all doing? Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of May. So this is a very belated monthly wrap up, but let's just ignore the fact that I wasn't filming videos for a while and just get into the 9 books that I read in the month of May. So the first book that I read was Beautiful Darkness by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll, and I actually listened to this book on audio, and I actually quite enjoy these audiobooks. I think that they're fun. They have a lot of special effects in them, which I enjoy. So if you want to read this series, I do recommend the audiobooks if audiobooks are something that you enjoy anyways. But if you don't know what this series is about, it's about this boy named Ethan Waite, and he lives in this small town of Gatlin where nothing really happens. It's kind of the same old every single day until this girl named Lena Duquesne moves into the town with old man Ravenwood, who's kind of this recluse that nobody really gets to see or talk to. So Ethan and Lena end up meeting in school and becoming really close, and he finds out that she is a caster, and he kind of has to deal with being thrust into that world. On her 16th birthday, she's forced to either be a good caster or a bad caster, and she has no choice in the matter. It's just who she is, so she gets claimed as either a good or bad caster, and so they kind of are dealing with that the entirety of the first book, and this is kind of just a continuation of what happens after that, and kind of like the aftermath and everything. I felt the same about this book as I did about Beautiful Creatures. I feel very meh about it. I had a good time listening to it, but story-wise and character-wise, it was just meh. It was just okay. I don't feel any overall strong connection to the characters or to the story or the world. It's just something that was fun to listen to, and that's where I continued on. But it's not necessarily a series that I would recommend or that I would talk about a lot, or that I would love. It's just, it was entertaining, and it was kind of like a fun time, especially through the audiobook with all the sound effects and things that were added. So overall, I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. So I didn't dislike it, but I also just didn't love it. The second book that I read in the month of May was The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I actually read half of this book physically and then listened to the rest of it on audiobook because I just really wanted to finish it and I didn't want to be reading it anymore. So obviously I did not like this book. I don't think it's a bad book. I think it just wasn't a book for me, but I don't even know how to describe this book. But basically it's about these two people, Celia and Marco, and they're being pitted against each other in a competition or game, but they don't know that they are opponents, and so they are kind of blindly competing against each other without knowing it, and it's kind of just this big story about circuses and competitions and magicians and things like that. I had high hopes for this book because it's really hyped up in the community. A lot of people love this book, but unfortunately The Night Circus and I just did not mesh. We did not work together. It was not a good relationship. I just didn't enjoy this book. I really wanted to. I really wanted to, but there were so many aspects of this book that are just not things that I personally enjoy, like sporadic time jumps from different years and different points in the story. It's just not a storytelling format that I typically enjoy or that I can find easy to follow. I find that I don't pay enough attention to the dates. That's completely my fault. That's not a fault of the book. That's just a personal thing. I also just didn't like the relationship. I just felt like it was out of nowhere and it just didn't really make a lot of sense. It kind of felt forced and I didn't really like it. It felt a little random to me, which was really annoying because in the synopsis it talks about this epic romance and I just didn't feel that from the book. Also there were just so many characters throughout all these years that they were trying to weave together. There were so many characters that I just couldn't connect to any of them. I didn't care about any of them. Most of the time I forgot who everybody was, so that was really annoying. Again, I don't think it's a bad book. I just think we didn't mesh together and it just was so many components I just don't like. I don't like big casts of characters. I feel like I don't get enough time with each character, and I don't like sporadic time jumps. So with all of that, this book was not for me. One aspect that I did enjoy was the circus. I thought the circus was mysterious and fun and kind of whimsical, so I did enjoy the circus atmosphere and setting of a lot of the book. But besides that, there's not a whole lot I enjoyed about this book, so unfortunately I did give it a 2 out of 5 stars. The third book that I read in the month of May was Again But Better by Christine Riccio, also known as Poland Bananas Books on YouTube. Okay, so obviously there was a lot of hype surrounding this book because Christine is the biggest booktuber in our community. She's kind of the top tier, and so her book was highly anticipated. I was trying not to have high expectations going into this book, but I think I kind of did. But let me tell you, I really enjoyed this book. We follow our main character Shane as she is on her way to a study abroad program. She's kind of realized that she has been doing college wrong. She hasn't been getting the college experience that she thought that she would get because none of the experiences are coming to her, and she's like, oh, I have to go find the experiences. She decides to go on a study abroad program in London, and there she meets her housemates who become her really close friends, and she meets a guy who was one of her housemates' pilot, and she immediately becomes like smitten with him and like likes him. But she realizes pretty soon after meeting him that he has a girlfriend, so she kind of like takes a step back. She still like likes him, but she's not like doing really anything about it. And then study abroad comes to an end, and there's a time jump of quite a big time jump, and she ends up getting a chance to do it again, but better. That's how I'll describe it. But it is such a good story. A lot of people compare it to old classic YA contemporaries, and it definitely does have that feel of like Anna and the French Kiss and books like that, especially with the study abroad aspect. But it's so much more than that. There's a touch of magic, which is just so much fun. I really enjoyed that whole part of the book. It was really enjoyable to read about. I thought that the plot was really well done and really fun and engaging, and I also really enjoyed the characters, especially Shane and Pilot. Since reading this book, I have realized that I do wish we got more of the other characters. I feel like we didn't get to see them a whole lot, but side characters do tend to fall to the wayside in stories, but I do wish we could have seen more from them, but I still enjoyed all of the characters. A lot of critique that people have been having about this book is Shane is essentially a self-insert of Christine. Christine basically wrote herself into Shane, and that doesn't really bother me because it's only because we know Christine is a YouTuber that we can recognize that. For all we know, a lot of the books that we read and love, the authors also self-inserted themselves, like as far as, like, we don't know, right? Because we don't know the authors personally, but because we know more about Christine than the average author, people notice it more, but I was not bothered by it at all. I kind of expected it going into it because some people were saying it, and also it's a book about a college girl going to study abroad, and that's exactly what Christine did. So I was already going into this expecting that self-insert, and it didn't bother me at all. But do keep that in mind. If you think that's something that's going to bother you, maybe don't pick this book up. Another issue that people have had with this book is cheating. There's a touch of cheating in this book, which didn't bother me as I was reading it, and then afterwards it kind of like sunk in a bit more, and I definitely think that it could have been dealt with better. I think it could have been avoided altogether, but overall it was such a small little part of the book that it didn't like bother me entirely. It didn't affect my rating for this book after the fact or anything. I still feel the same about this book as I did before, but it is something that I think could have been handled a little bit better or could have been avoided. Overall, I still enjoy the romance, and I'm just gonna try and pretend that cheating didn't happen. I'm gonna try. I really enjoyed this book, and I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars, which I'm so happy about. I adore this book, and as you can see behind me, I have a second copy because I just love it so much. Look at all these tabs. Like, there are so many tabs in this book. So the fourth book that I read was Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. I read this for the Mass-along that I am co-hosting with Peyton Reads. I don't want to go too in-depth with this one because we do have a live show on it, so if you want to know more in-depth spoilery thoughts, you can go ahead and check out the live show. We both have playlists on our channel of all of our Mass-along live shows if you want to check those out. But this has and will probably always be my least favorite book in the Throne of Glass series. It's just so long and so boring and nothing happens, and I just I do not like this book. This book was such a pain to get through. It felt very similar to my experience of rereading Throne of Glass, where I felt like I was pulling my hair out because it was that difficult to read. I don't know how this is like most people's favorite book, or like it used to be people's favorite book. I don't understand that. It's so boring. Nothing happens. Yeah, I didn't enjoy this book. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Although, honestly, it probably deserves a little less. I'm going to talk about the next 3 books together, but I read the first 3 books in the Vampire Academy series. This was a reread for me. It was kind of impromptu, but not really. But I buddy read these with Kirsten and Peyton, which was really, really fun because we were able to talk about them together, which was really great. This was a reread for Peyton and a new read for Kirsten, so that was really exciting because she had never read these before. I absolutely adore these books. If you don't know what this series is about, it's basically about this world where there are good vampires, bad vampires, and like half vampires. So the good vampires are called Moroi, and then there are Strigoi, who are the bad vampires, and then there's the half vampires, which are Dampiers. They're half Moroi, half human, and they are the guardians and the protectors of the Moroi. There's a vampire academy called Vladimir's that the Moroi and the young Dampiers attend to get training and schooling and whatnot. So this is a really fun, trashy YA series that I really thoroughly enjoy. I'm not going to talk about them too much because I feel like they're such old books that people should know what they're about. But I really enjoyed rereading them. I'm going to say that they're not perfect and they're not the best, but they're just so much fun, and I adore these characters so much. And it's been a really long time since I've reread these books, so it was really, really fun to be able to just jump back into this world head first and read from like this point in the series, and to like see these characters so young and just re-experience everything was really, really fun. Okay, so I gave Vampire Academy and Frostbite both 4 out of 5 stars, and I gave Shadowkiss a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I do quickly just want to give a trigger warning for Vampire Academy that I feel like nobody ever mentions, and I definitely forgot about it going into this reread. There is some self-harm that takes place in this book, so if that's something that is triggering for you, maybe skip this book or just prepare yourself for the self-harm aspects. It's not present in these books. It's talked about, but it's not present, and I can't remember if it continues back up at all in the other books. I'm pretty sure it doesn't, but it is heavy in this book, so just keep that in mind if you're going to go into it, that there is some self-harm. Also read The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I wanted to read this in preparation for the movie because I've never read this book before. We follow Natasha and Daniel as they meet in New York City and kind of have this whirlwind romance within a day. So Natasha is currently being deported to Jamaica, and so she's kind of on a mission to try and prevent her family from being deported so they can stay in New York. And then there's Daniel, who is on his way for a college interview, a university interview, and they kind of meet by chance, and he becomes attracted to her, and so he kind of pursues her and talks to her, and he tries to tell her that he can make her fall in love with him in one day, and she's kind of very skeptical about that. And so, like I said, whirlwind romance in a day. It's a really fun story. However, I do prefer Everything to this one, which is Nicola Yoon's other novel. I just found something about that book more compelling and more enjoyable. So I enjoyed the characters and I enjoyed the plot and the story. It was fun and cute. And while I did enjoy the romance, I also have a slight issue with it, which is such a hypocritical thing for me to say, because my issue is that it was so fast-paced and so quick. And that's like, I hate saying that because I love books like They Both Die at the End, where it's a very similar situation where they fall in love within one day. But for some reason, I'm okay with They Both Die at the End, and I think it's because they were gonna die at the end. But for some reason with this one, it bothered me a little bit more, and I can't really tell you why, because I don't know. But the fast-paced romance bothered me a little bit, but I still found them cute. Just not as cute as I was hoping I would. Also in this book, we get strangers' point of views, so people that Natasha and Daniel meet or pass by or encounter during their day. We also get little snippet point of views from them, and I thought going into this book that I wouldn't enjoy that aspect, but I actually really did enjoy it. So that's a good thing. So yeah, overall, I had a fun time with this book. It was a really quick, fast read. It was cute. It was fun. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I read, let's wrap this up here, it was I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. I don't know what this book is about. It's basically about our main character, Ben, and at the very beginning of the book, they come out to their parents as non-binary, and they get kicked out of their house. And so Ben has to find somewhere to live. So they end up living with their sister, and then they have to go to a new high school and get enrolled, and they end up meeting a boy named Nathan. A really beautiful story about Ben coming out and kind of everything that has to do with that. And there was also anxiety representation in this book, which I was not expecting, but I really appreciated, and I really resonated with that part of the book, so I really appreciated that representation, as well as I really enjoyed the representation for non-binary people and being able to learn more about them, as I've never read a book about non-binary people before, so I really enjoyed that as well. And it was really heartbreaking at times, and at the very beginning, I thought that I wouldn't be able to continue reading it because I was in a bad headspace, and so I thought that for my mental health, I should probably put the book down, but I really wanted to read it, and so I pushed through, and I'm so glad that I did because it was so much more than just the heartbreaking stuff. There was good moments as well, and cute moments between Nathan and Ben that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the progression of the relationship between Ben and Nathan, and it was such a good book. It was so good. My only real complaint about the book, however, is the writing. I don't know why, but for some reason the writing left a disconnect for a bit of the book between me and the story. I couldn't fully invest myself and throw myself into the story. It took me a while, but once I got into it and once I got used to the writing, I was fine. But it did take me a little while to be able to get past the writing and just ignore it and be a part of the story. But once I did, it was amazing. Overall, I really enjoyed this book, and I highly recommend it to anybody who is going through something similar to our main character, Ben, with coming out as non-binary or coming to terms with being non-binary or anything of this sort. I feel like it's a really important book, and I highly recommend it. It is an own voices novel, so you know it's going to be good representation, which is amazing. And I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So that is everything that I read in the month of May. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down below what you guys read in May. Give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you have not yet already, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!